Hi, Jen. Welcome to the show. I'm very excited to have you on today.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
So, we're going to spend the next half hour discussing your latest book called The Feeling Muscle. And this is about how felt emotion can help you sit with and outlast hard feelings. So, I would love for you to just start off sharing a little bit about yourself and how you came to write this book.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm a naturopathic physician. I'm a body worker and a former dancer, but I should probably go back even further to tell you a little bit about myself. I am somebody who is a strong feeler. I feel my feelings profoundly in my body, and I did so as a young child and as an adolescent and as an adult. And because of that, feeling all these strong feelings, I didn't know how to manage. I didn't know how to manage everything that I was feeling. And at the same time, I am somebody like probably many of your listeners, somebody that has a very busy, worried mind. And I also have OCD. So I have obsessive and compulsive and intrusive thoughts.
Mm.
And so there were moments in my young life where I was desperate to find out who I was apart from the mental noise in my brain. And I went to the body to find some answers.
Mm. So, I mean, I think what you're describing is like a very highly sensitive individual, right? Who's
Yes,
not only experiencing your own emotions very intensely, but others around you as well.
absolutely.
I think you call it frequent feelers or
Frequent feelers. Yes.
yes. And I would say that a lot of women are listening to this can relate, but even maybe more so our children. I don't know if you can relate to that, but like I have a very highly sensitive 8-year-old son, and we can see how intense their emotions are, especially for a child to process. But then also, like we're talking the emotions around them, the intensity. So this is a really important life skill to learn. Ideally, as a child, right? To
Yes.
help with coping and managing effect and managing the emotions in a healthy manner so they don't get stuck or stored in the body and create dis-ease.
Absolutely. And in the book, I talk about sort of this fantasy emotions class that I wish we all had as children. And I think we are doing much better by our children today. Emotional health is very much top of mind. But we still don't talk about how to sit with hard feelings and how to get past them. Um, in our society, if you look at the phrases and the words that we use, a lot of the messages that we give our kids, you know, grin and bear it,
Mm.
toughen up, just push through it, get through it, rather than messages of more resilience, of, I know you can do hard things and I know you can sit with hard feelings and I'm here for you, you know, to validate and help you move through those feelings.
Right. And I agree. I think like the messaging, especially towards children, has improved. Like we're all more aware of how important it is. And also, especially with males, right? Not suppressing emotions, not suppressing tears, right? Like
Yeah.
they need
Going
to
through crying.
experience their emotions just as much as girls do, right? So I think that's really important. And yeah, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
Well, sure. I mean, and we don't yet know, I think, quantitatively or scientifically exactly what happens when we sit on emotions or when we swallow and squash emotions. But I think intuitively, and especially as parents, mothers, we know that when we keep emotions in, we can do that for a certain amount of time, but inevitably emotions come out, usually unexpectedly and unceremoniously, and that, and what's interesting in a family dynamic with children is those emotions can come out and they're spewed out, sometimes vomited out on the people we love. Um, and I talk a lot about how we can take responsibility for our feelings, and by owning them, we process them and move through them and express them in a healthy, constructive way, as opposed to bottling them up and, phew, you know, the explosion of emotion, which is never a good model for our kids, right?
Right. So, I would say any body worker, like, you and I both do different types of body work, and anybody who's doing hands-on healing can feel where things are stuck in the body, right? And part of the
Mhm.
work of the healing we're doing is not just to move joints or unwind dura tension or, release muscle trigger points, right? But it's
Right.
really helping to move that emotional stress out of the body, right? But then when we see it kind of returning, maybe to the same spots, then we know there's deeper work that needs to be done, right? Um, so
Yeah.
what do you recommend for that? Like if somebody's like, I know this is stress and it's always in my neck, that story.
Absolutely, absolutely. And how I would work with that is, first of all, I always tell my patients when they come in and they get on my table, is that we're going to work with whatever is present in the moment for you. And sometimes people, when they do body work or they do mind body techniques, they think that the end goal is relaxation and, sort of calm, which is great, and that's a part of the toolkit. But really, when we're dealing with our emotions, we work with what is present. And so let's say somebody comes in, your example, my neck, I feel my neck is so tense. If, if you invite that person to s- enter that feeling, because what does it feel like? I usually put my hands where they're feeling something in their body. Sometimes I let my hands actually help them feel themselves, give them permission to feel their neck, and then offer them an opportunity not just to stay and feel what that tension and yuckiness, discomfort feels like, but then also to give it a voice, right? To describe it. And sometimes that's words, sometimes that's an image, sometimes it's a memory, sometimes, it's music or colors. People see colors a lot, I'm sure, in their body. And by just giving the feeling a voice, it actually gives somebody more permission to feel it and go towards that feeling.
Mhm. I guess it becomes, like, less scary, right? It's like,
Mhm.
"Okay, I can manage this, I can handle this." And also, like, what about where, so you're talking about really being in that very present moment, but what about, like, a lot of times these emotions are stuck from, let's say, childhood, right? Like, they've been there for decades. So how does somebody transition from what's going on right now presently to something that happened a long time ago?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question, and I love it because I have lots of examples in the book of but can I give you an example of a patient? And obviously, this is the names and stories and genders are all changed. But so I had a patient, Penny, come um, in her mid-20s, and she had a history of both anorexia and self-harm. But she had an enormous amount of therapy, and her therapist had sent her to me for body work. And so on our fourth session, she was on the table and she was describing to me this feeling that she had come into the session with, right? So something had she had been experiencing some kind of feeling of rejection. I think it was around her boss. She's feeling it in her gut. She's staying with the feeling. She's describing the feeling to me, and then all of a sudden, she remembers that this is a familiar feeling to her. Oh, yeah, I've had this. I've had this feeling before. I've had this feeling a number of times before. And then she went even deeper to remember a time in her life, as in high school, where she felt the same emotion of rejection. her friends weren't really friends. They were, peers were nasty or mean to her. And she said to me, I I I can't believe it. Oh, I'm sorry, my dog is barking. I'm so sorry. Um, I she said, I have felt this feeling before, and I think that I didn't want to feel this pain. And one of the reasons that I cut was so that I could feel pain on my own terms, that I could feel that I could expect it and know when it was coming. And then I didn't have to feel this pain. And I know that's sort of a long-winded answer to your question, but yes, even feelings from back in our past can come up during present moment work.
Got it, right. So in other words, that feeling of rejection in her current life was reminding her of the rejection, and you're saying this was the first time that she linked feeling rejected to self-harm?
At least in a physical way, at least in a physical experience. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so then after that becomes conscious, and aware, then what happens next for that person?
So this person in particular had not cut in many years when she saw me. She had been free from self-harm, but she had started to think about it again with a stressful job. And that's why her therapist had sent her to me. So what was next for her was an understanding that she was somebody who was somatic, that she had strong feelings in her body. And that gave her permission to sort of give her a sense of who she was and who, as an identity, I'm somebody that has strong feelings. I feel things in my body and I can be with them and I can sit with them rather than choosing behaviors that take me away from those feelings. Right. Because a lot of what we struggle with day to day with hard feelings is choosing behaviors to move us away from those feelings rather than towards the feelings. And the majority of those behaviors are they don't necessarily have our best self in mind, right? A lot of the behaviors that we choose to avoid, numb, and distract ourselves from feelings are behaviors that maybe take us away from ourselves and move us away from who we want to be.
Right, exactly. So it is you mentioned being somatic. I don't know if you want to delve in a little bit more about what that means and what type of person that is.
Yeah, sure. So that's what I describe as a frequent feeler in the book, which is somebody who feels their emotions physically in their body. So, and somebody might understand that. We use phrases all the time, like we have butterflies in our stomach, or our head is going to explode, or maybe you feel contentment as a warmth through your body. So we use these words. We know that we have such a thing as felt emotion, but we don't have a word for it. So people that are somatic are people that experience these feelings throughout their day. Multiple times throughout their day. And the feelings can be strong and they can accompany both what we would consider pleasant feelings, pleasant experiences, and they can accompany hard experiences and hard feelings.
Right. And so some people are feeling that, like, the frequent feelers are just individuals that are sensitive and feel their emotions more than others.
Well, it's interesting. I have a close friend who, when she read the book, said to me, I feel really strongly. I feel things strongly, but I don't necessarily feel them in my body. And so throughout the book, I say that there are people that are good, that this is going to resonate with.
Mhm.
And then there's people that it's not going to resonate with. And that's okay.
Yeah.
There's concepts in the book that I think everybody can play with and grapple with and understand. The aspect of being somatic is, there's certain people that are going to really connect to that and feel validated, and other people that are going to go, yeah, I'm not so sure.
And potentially, is this more of like a kinesthetic learner as well? Like they're just more hands-on, need to touch things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you see that in kids as well too, right? Like strong feelers, they're not only are they feeling strong feelings, but they need to understand the world in a tactile feeling way.
Mm, got it. So, when you were mentioning if somebody's noticing, like, okay, how can you just speak to like how someone's going to sit with maybe a hard feeling
Yeah, sure.
yeah, and what that
Yeah, yeah,
means?
yeah. Yeah, because that really is like a tricky concept. And, the idea of sitting with feelings can be really abstract and difficult to grasp. And that's why I try to give people something discernible and tangible. So where I'll begin is, it's important to start to play with feelings that are familiar and kind of everyday feelings. So maybe a feeling of frustration might be a good one to practice. We get frustrated a lot. To sit with ourselves for just a minute may sound weird, but to see if we can find a place in our body where that frustration settles. For me, my frustration settles right below my sternum, right? And it's so hard and so tense and bubbly. And being able, and it's different for everybody, but being able to find that place and to realize that there is real sort of tangible, discernible feeling. It has a intensity, it has a location, and it has a density to it. And then at that point, just say to ourselves, okay, can I welcome this feeling in? Right? Like, can I open the door to it? Almost as if we're shaking the hand of the feeling. And just that idea of can I welcome it in? Can I stay with it? May sound a little strange, but we're just starting to make friends with some of our hard feelings. And the way that we make friends with them are letting them in and welcoming them and just sitting with them for a minute.
Okay, and then what?
And then, yes, so to start with smaller feelings, right?
Mm,
To start with lesser. So I had a friend, a really good friend who read this book and said to me, "Oh my gosh, you got to help me you got to help me with my fear of flying. I have like a 5-hour flight next week." And I said to her, being honest, I said, in order to start sitting with your discomfort, you have to start day to day. You have to start just letting things in. And so when you say what's next, then I would say what's next is, can you pause and stop a minute during your day, maybe tomorrow, and just try to take in a good feeling, right? Like a feeling, maybe somebody gave you a compliment. Maybe you see something, an image or a sunset that moves you. Can you stop for a minute and stay with that feeling and
got it.
explore what that feels like?
Right. And obviously, this can be painful. This can be hard. It's hard work, right? At
It's hard
times.
work. Yeah.
And, I think there's an opportunity here to emote, right? Like cry, release, scream. Like, so you have to be in a place that's safe for you to be able to feel that. But that's also using your body to feel those emotions, right?
It is. It is using and the idea of having a place that's safe to feel your emotions is really important because some people that will be in on their own, right? People prefer to feel their emotions privately. Some people might prefer to share their emotions with somebody else and might be fortunate to enough to have somebody hold that space for them. But it is hard. I mean, it is hard work. It is big stuff to be able to make the intentional choice to stay and sit with something rather than take our mind off of it, right? Like there's so many distractions in our world. Think about our phones, the swiping of a breaking news story, an email, a text, a social media post, there is online shopping. There's so many things that can take us away from those feelings that it really is big, important stuff and hard stuff to sit with feelings. Um, I would love to talk about why sitting with hard feelings if we have the time.
Yes, let's do
Yeah,
it.
because I think that's important, and it's also another question that I get a lot. from people is, why, why do it? This is such
Why
hard
do the
work.
hard work? Yeah.
Why do the hard work? Yeah, why do the hard work, and why stay with hard feelings? And there's a couple. I have different levels of answers, but the first one we sort of talked about already, which is when we don't feel our hard feelings, we the behaviors that we choose to do instead of our hard feelings aren't necessarily moving us towards our goals, right? So we might choose a numbing agent, food, alcohol, drugs. We can choose distractions, which I just talked about. Um, there's something that I talk about in my book, which I'm sure you see a lot, is guarding and protecting is a way that we don't feel our feelings, right? So we hold our breath, we tense our jaw and our neck, and we push away feelings in our body. And so these are all ways that we push away feelings. So when we actually can sit and let them into our body and welcome them, we actually are more present with ourselves and our lives and the people around us. But another reason is this, so that we don't hold ourselves and the people around us hostage. Talked a little bit about this, but our emotions can hold us hostage, meaning that if we're afraid of feelings like rejection and shame and embarrassment and failure, we may not do things in our life, take risks, jump into new situations, go start a relationship or a friendship, because all those things can, they're wonderful, but they can result in some messy, complicated feelings. And if we don't know that we can sit with messy and complicated feelings, we might not take those chances or take those leaps in our life. And so I like the idea of when we can stay with hard feelings, when we know we can get through them, we sort of live more undaunted, a life undaunted by hard emotions and fear of hard feelings.
Right. And then it kind of just shuts everything down, right? Like, I'm sure you've also seen this. Anyone who's done body work with people, and we see the aging process where someone hasn't really cared for their body over decades, and now they're more rigid, less flexible, hunched over, poor posture. And this person is not wanting to leave their house. They're not wanting to try new things. There's a connection with that lack of flexibility and adaptability of their body and the mind and their ability to try new things, do new things, be adventurous, like you were
Yeah,
mentioning, right? So if the body is stuck like that, then the mind also can be stuck, right? And
the mind can be.
yeah, you really can't separate the 2. So, for me, like, if I feel like I want to do more in my life, be more on purpose, do things that are scary, how could I maybe do more physically with my body to strengthen it and stretch it and open it and receive all the body work things, right? To open my body up physically to then be more mentally open.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I would say I love that question, and I'm sure that different people would answer it different ways. But I see opening the body as a softening of the body armor. And what I mean by softening is to allow, so when I talk about opening and softening and being vulnerable, oftentimes people have a immediate reaction to that because we equate like softness, I don't know, to being weak, like you were saying, and maybe even like out of shape, right? We see a hard body as a body that's muscular and in shape. But I like to throw that image sort of out the window and ask people, what does it feel like in your body to soften your sternum and your chest, for example? And does that feel vulnerable? And that's okay. When you soften your chest, do you feel anxious? Maybe that's okay. When you soften your chest, you know, maybe you feel warmth and you feel contentment, and that's okay. So just to sort of open the possibility to exist differently within yourself, to exist differently, um, than how you have been perhaps guarding and protecting yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And how does that correlate with the masculine feminine dynamics? 'Cause when I'm hearing
Yeah.
softening, I'm not thinking weak, I'm thinking feminine.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
that's a beautiful thing for a woman to be in her feminine nature if she's, if that's her nature. But what about for men? Which is also very important for them to experience their feelings and emotions. They do have that feminine aspect. So what would you say to that?
Yeah. So when I well, I mean, I work equally with men and women, but I will say that for men in particular, let's say I'm working on the chest and the sort of the diaphragmatic region. We carry a lot of tension in that area just in general. A lot sort of gets held in our diaphragm and our breath. But for men in particular, when I say, "What do you feel underneath my hands?" They'll say, sometimes, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I feel anything." And then I'll say, usually what I do is I tell them what I'm feeling.
Mm,
You know what? I feel almost like your breath, your chest is like a tight elastic band and it's stretched to its limit. And something like that is going oftentimes what I see. I mean, I'm just saying, giving an example, but when I describe what's underneath my hands, what's so interesting to me is I often feel a softness
mm,
because it's almost like I've given them permission to feel what is there and that that's okay. I don't know if that, yeah.
yeah, that makes
Yeah.
perfect sense to me. Like, well, because you made it conscious, right? Even if they weren't
Yeah.
aware of it before, now they are because you
Yeah.
verbalized it to them.
Yeah.
And, it resonates with them, and that's why they can now start to release, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Do you recommend journaling as well? Can that be helpful for people that are sitting with their emotions?
Absolutely. In fact, in the book, I give a lot of journal prompts, for people, to express and to feel your emotions. For some people, that's all about creativity. So it can be expressing yourself through journaling, through poetry, through dancing, through yoga, through painting a picture, taking a photograph. So I really do try to encourage and emphasize that creative expression, as it is a way that we both process our emotions and feel them.
Mm. Right, and I'm even thinking of examples like art therapy, right? That's where somebody is using their hand to create art, and that is still a visceral experience rather than just sitting and talking to a therapist, right? Which is where you were sharing that's just very cognitive, it's very in the brain, but not really connected to the body.
Right, right. It's not connected to the body. And I will say that there's a lot of therapists out there that do body-centered and somatic work, where they do make those connections. Um, but yes, i it's important to realize that we are not just talking heads, and I don't mean that in a judgy way. I really don't. Like, it's just a factor of the world and that we're living in, right? The world that celebrates the intellect and the mind. um but we really are so much more than our mind.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You do mention Candace Burt's, book, and I Molecules of Emotion, which I
Yeah.
also was exposed to when I was in chiropractic school and was, like, mind blown how everything we think becomes these molecules in our body and changes our biochemistry and our hormones, and we can see, like, repetitive negative thoughts are going to create a different type of chemistry in someone's body than repetitive positive thoughts, right? So that awareness is really important, I think, for people to know that our thoughts do become, you know, part of who we are,
Without a
literally.
doubt. Yeah, literally, without a doubt. Yeah, the concept of awareness is such a important concept because sometimes we think that we have to make these crazy, elaborate and complicated changes in our life, right? Like, oh, if I'm going to do that, I can't do that because it would take too much work. And the reality is by just being aware of something that you might want to do differently, or just being aware of something that you're doing, opens the door to the possibility of change. And I think to be able to communicate that to folks is really, it's really important, is when we become aware and when we bring intention to our life and our behaviors and our, goals and dreams, things can change. There's great possibility behind awareness.
Well said. Well, Jen, do you have any last thoughts you want to share with the audience?
Well, I really want to thank you for this opportunity, and also to thank you for the community that you create, here on the podcast and online. I have such gratitude towards, folks like you that bring awareness to important issues and can communicate and articulate them, and I'm just grateful.
Thank you. So if they want to find out more, they can go to your website, right?
Yep,
drjenrapkin.com.
.com. Yeah, and my book, is currently available on Amazon, both as a paperback and an ebook.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Aw, thank you so much for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Dr. Jen. I think it was a really insightful conversation about number one, the importance of feeling our feelings and how doing that through the body can be so impactful in processing and releasing anything that is stuck and feeling hard in our life. And that it does take work to do those deeper type of work, but it pays in dividends within rewards. So to learn more about the book, about feeling our feelings in the body, and essentially growing ourselves through processing these hard feelings, check out her website at Dr. Jenn, that's Jenn Rapkin, RAPKIN.com. You can also find the book, The Feeling Muscle, How Felt Emotion Can Help Us Sit With and Outlast Hard Feelings, on Amazon. Also, I just wanted to share that I am so excited to announce the start of my virtual functional medicine practice. I've been supporting women locally in my Hoboken practice for over 20 years, and now I can offer services to women living anywhere that are looking for functional medicine with an IFM certified practitioner. And my consultations specialize in preconception, fertility, and women's health. If you want to find out more, check out my website at drlaurabrayton.com. Click Become a Patient to schedule a complimentary 15-minute discovery call with me to see if this program is a good fit for you. And also, if you like this show, please leave us a review. Go to ratethispodcast.com /well-adjusted mama and follow the simple instructions.